Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. All right, everybody, let's get rolling here. All right, I'm going to call to order on this Thursday, November 19th, the Riverside County Habitat Conservation Agency Board of Directors meeting. The call time is 11:31. And if you'll all please stand up and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Mr. Chair, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Okay, item 3 is our roll call. Janice, will you please conduct roll call?
Certainly. If you could please state your name when I call your jurisdiction. City of Corona. Hemet.
Russ Brown here.
Lake Elsinore. Menifee.
Lisa Sobek.
Moreno Valley. Murrieta.
Christy White.
Paris.
Yes, Michael Vargas.
Riverside.
Yes, Steve Hemingway.
Temecula. Wildemar.
Joseph Morabito.
County of Riverside.
Jeff Hewitt.
That concludes roll call and we have quorum.
Janice, and thank everyone that's in attendance. I appreciate it. Just a reminder, if you have other devices on, other PCs or laptops other than what you're using on your phones, if you could please turn them off so that we do not have any feedback when others are talking. It does cause a big interruption during our meeting. Okay, so a little different right now. We are now going to recess our RCHCA meeting so that we can convene into the Riverside Communities Partnership Project Board of Directors. And at the conclusion of that meeting, we will reconvene back to the RCHCA Board of Directors meeting. With that being said, I know it's redundant, but item 1 under this the Riverside Communities Partnership Project, I need to call the meeting to order and ask for another roll call. So Janice, can you please conduct roll call again?
Certainly. City of Corona. Hemet.
Here.
Lake Elsinore. Menifee.
Here.
Moreno Valley. Murrieta.
Here.
Paris.
Here.
Riverside.
Here.
Temecula. Wildemar.
Here.
County of Riverside.
Here.
Concludes roll call and we have quorum.
Thank you. And City of Corona is here. She
Yes.
just, yeah,
I'm
she's
here.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
so,
Item number 3 is our public comments. Do we have any requests to speak, Madam Clerk?
I have no requests.
Okay. Item 4 is our consent and policy calendar. All items listed on the consent policy calendar are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion. Prior to the motion to be considered by any action of the board, any public comment or any of the consent items will be heard. Do we have any requests to speak on consent policy calendar?
I have no requests.
All right. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over and let Princess Heather give her presentation on the consent and policy calendar.
well, good morning and thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the RCHCA board. This is the first meeting for the Riverside Communities Partnership Projects Board of Directors, and I'm going to provide just a brief presentation of the items we're going to consider today. Next slide, please. In November 2019, the RCHCA board authorized staff to establish the Riverside Communities Partnership Project. And the mission of the RCPP is to support the RCHCA. This is going to be a vital component for us to be able to receive, invest funds, and grants to provide extra benefit for expanding our coordination amongst other agencies that are responsible for land management activities and environmental stewardship projects. And right now I'm going to explain to you the process. I will be presenting items 4A through 4I under the consent calendar. And as the chairman stated, after the presentation, then you will vote on those items in one motion. I'm presenting item 4A, which is the our Riverside Communities Partnership Project Board of Directors to acknowledge that the officers of the RCHCA Board of Directors are automatically designated as the officers of the RCPP, and also to acknowledge that the secretary and the executive director of the RCHCA is the director of WRCOG, and the treasurer is WRCOG's chief financial officer. Item 4B requests ratification and adoption of the Articles of Incorporation. We presented those to the state in October and we have our final documents. Item 4C is the adoption of the bylaws and also the approval of the resolution. Next slide. Item 4D adopts the conflict of interest policy and resolution. It also directs the secretary to sign the certificate. Item 4E adopts the resolution authorizing the actions of officers in facilitating the administrative duties of the agency. Next slide, please. I don't know what's happening. Is everyone else seeing that? I'm just going to go on. I'm not sure what's happening with the presentation at this point. So we'll go on and we'll try to get that cleaned up. I would say that you should probably just go back or try to reshare, restart, like unshare and then reshare your screen.
It may also be a bandwidth issue. And I just want to remind everybody that I did send out the PowerPoint earlier this morning. So if you'd like to follow along with that, look in your inbox for the PowerPoint.
What page are we currently on?
We would be, oh, I didn't open it myself.
Which page of the PowerPoint?
PowerPoint, yeah.
Princess, will we need to make a summary motion
I
for the
see,
consent items? Or
I just wanted to at least be able to tell everybody what's on there. Let's see if we can get through it. We just have a couple more. So item 4, you can go to, okay, 4E is the authorization of officers. 4F is the authorization to file for tax exempt status and the registration statements with the state of California. 4G adopts the investment policy of WRCOG and designates banking and authorized signatories on the account. Item 4H authorizes the use of logo and approves in-kind staff support. And item 4I approves a resolution and adopts the fiscal year 2021 agency budget for the RCPP. This concludes my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions prior to you calling for the vote.
And this is page 16 of the PowerPoint that I sent out this morning.
Thank you, Princess. Does anybody have any questions?
I see no hands raised.
Okay, great.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda items on the consent calendar 4A through 4I as read by Princess Hester.
Very good. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Menifee.
All right, very good. We have a first and a second. Janice, can you call roll call vote, please?
Certainly. City of Corona. She has her hand raised. If you could please unmute Director Carrillo.
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, my button keeps getting stuck. I apologize.
That's okay. City of Hemet,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley, Murrieta,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula, Wildemar,
Aye.
and County of Riverside.
Yes.
That concludes the roll call vote for those items, and they pass unanimously.
Item 5 is our items for future agenda. Does anybody have any requests for future agenda items?
I see no requests.
Thank you. Item 7 is our next meeting. The next meeting for the RCPP Board of Directors will be scheduled for Thursday, May 20th, 2021 at 11:30 a.m. And this time we're presuming it'll still remain on a Zoom platform, but we'll know more as that gets closer. Item 8 is our adjournment. We'll now adjourn our meeting of the RCPP Board of Directors, and we will reconvene back to our RCHCA Board of Directors meeting.
And I think you're saying, Mr. Mayor, RCPP, not RCTC.
RCPP.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Okay, item 4 is public comments for the RCHCA. Do we have any requests, Janice?
I have no requests.
All righty, we're going to move right along then to item 5, our consent and policy calendar. Does anybody wish to pull any items for further discussion?
I see no hands raised.
Thank you. In that case, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So
Hammett
moved.
moves. Second by Hammett.
Did you get the first, Janice?
I want to say it was Murrieta.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good. All right, roll call vote, please.
City of Corona,
Yes.
Emmett,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley, Murrieta,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula, Wildemar,
Aye.
County of Riverside.
Yes.
That concludes the roll call vote, and that item passes unanimously.
All right, item 6 is reports and discussion. 6A is a status update on the Stevens kangaroo rat recovery efforts, and this will be given by Princess Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Princess Hester, Director of Administration for the RCHCA, and I am presenting item 6A, which is a status update on our Stevens kangaroo rat recovery efforts. In September, the Fish and Wildlife Agency published a proposed rule to reclassify SKR from endangered to threatened. And this rule has a section 4D rule attached to it. And what that 4D rule does for us as an agency, it allows us to conduct management activities for SKR without having to receive special considerations or approval from the wildlife agencies. The comment period closed on October 19th, and Fish and Wildlife is reviewing those. I'm sorry, you told me to do that and I did not. Fish and Wildlife is reviewing those comments. We reviewed the comments as well, and there weren't any substantive comments or concerns proposed with the published rule. And so we anticipate that the final rule will be presented to Congress in 2021. We'll definitely keep you up to date with that. And we would like to continue our advocacy efforts with the wildlife agencies in Sacramento and DC in the coming months. And that's just to make sure, you know, that our project stays basically at the top of the pile for consideration, so that we can make sure that we're involved in considering and making sure that it's moving along appropriately. Next slide. Okay. And is there a slide before this? No. Okay, and so then that concludes my presentation, and this is a receive and file, and I will answer any questions you have at this time.
Guys, do we have any members of the public that want to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Very good. I'll open it up to board members. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I just have a comment, and that would be, this is exciting. And I'm glad there wasn't any significant comments made when it was out there, and looking forward to it going to Congress.
Absolutely. I ditto your comments as well, and thank Hester and your princess and all your staff for doing a tremendous job as usual. This is exciting news. So this is a receive and file only, so we'll move along. Item B is our fiscal year 2020-2021 agency goals and objectives, and this will be presented by Princess Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Princess Hester, RCHCA, and I'm presenting the fiscal year 2021 goals and objectives. Throughout this presentation, you know, all of the work that we do is definitely a team effort, and we all work together, you know, to accomplish these things. And so throughout the presentation today, you're going to hear some of the goals and objectives that we have from an administrative perspective, and you'll also hear goals and objectives that we have from our Director of Natural Resources, Brian Shomo, in regards to our land management and species recovery efforts. So in the line of species recovery, as I announced in a prior staff report, the proposed reclassification for SKR is being proposed right now to Congress, and we're expecting that federal rule, the final federal rule, to publish in 2021. But that basically is not the end of it. We still have a long road ahead of us in species recovery efforts, and we will continue to move along with those actions. One is that we are establishing a steering committee to implement the species range-wide management and monitoring plan that was funded by the Bureau of Land Management. This year, we received a grant of approximately $600,000 from BLM to support this implementation of the species range-wide management and monitoring plan. And this gathers partners throughout the geographic range of SKR, which includes Northern San Diego and also some of the military establishments in San Diego County. In addition, we are going to work with Fish and Wildlife to finalize the SKR 1997 draft recovery plan. We started on this journey a few years ago, and now before us considering even, you know, any talks of downlisting or what our next steps are, the draft recovery plan needs to be finalized. In addition to that, we'll be conducting peer reviews for our SKR habitat suitability model. Staff had an opportunity to review the model at a recent meeting, which was produced by our subcontractor, Conservation Biology Institute, and the model is showing very well, and we're getting great responses in support of the information that it's providing the agencies. In the areas of community involvement and educational outreach, as a result of COVID this year, we weren't able to do our educational outreach programs, and so we are identifying ways to create virtual platforms to be able to share those lessons of environmental stewardship and environmental education with our connections to our teachers in classrooms. We will look at engaging our community volunteer efforts in a way that we can do that using the COVID protocols. And we're going to identify funding mechanisms and opportunities to create shared resources through our Riverside Communities Partnership Project. Next slide. And I believe that that concludes my report for this item, and I would answer any questions at this time.
Janice, do we have any members of the public that wish to comment on this item?
I have no requests.
Thank you. Board members, anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, I just want to say it's too bad we can't do that outdoor project. That's really awesome to be there. I was there last year. Well, I've been there a couple of times now, but it sure is a good feeling to see the kids out there enjoying themselves and really learning about the SKR and other issues that are shared with them. Okay, this is another receive and file, so we'll move on to item number C. It's the Mott Rimrock gift of land. This will be presented by Princess Hester as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am producing item 6C, which is the Mott Rimrock gift of land. Next slide. Mott Rimrock is cooperatively managed by the University of California, Riverside's Department of Agriculture, and it's one of the 8 reserves that's dedicated to protection of SKR. Recently, Supervisor Marion Ashley donated over 21 acres of land, expanding the Mott Rimrock Reserve, and that's the blue area that you see on this map. The purple area is the boundaries for the Mott Rimrock, and so now we've been able, with his donation, to expand the area there at Mott. And Mott Rimrock Reserve is really dedicated to the scientific research for SKR species and conservation efforts here in Western Riverside. And so this is a great gift for us, and we will be preparing a thank you letter to go to Supervisor Marion Ashley and Mary Ashley. In addition, we'll be sending them one of the little K-Rats to just show our token of appreciation for this great gift. And it's just a continued dedication that they have had in supporting our environmental efforts here in Western Riverside County. And with that, this item is a receive and file, and that concludes my report, and I can answer any questions related to this report.
Awesome. Thank you, Princess.
Yes, Princess, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I think this sets a dangerous precedence for other supervisors that might, after they get out of office, have to at least own 21 acres of land. So no, it's a great gift, and I really appreciate him staying involved in doing this.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Hold on, everybody. Gotta open this up to public comment first. Janice, do we have any requests from the public to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. I see Christy White, hands up. You're on.
Thank you. I just had one question to clarify, Princess. You're not sending them a thank you gift of a SKR. You're sending them a plush toy of the SKR?
Absolutely, a plush toy of the SKR.
Great. That's what I thought.
We'll send it to him so he receives it at night, and then that way, it'll be awake during the night hours since it's a nocturnal species.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to ditto what has been said. I mean, this is great that Mary and Marion Ashley continue their efforts to support the environmental issues of Riverside County. And so thank you for sharing with us that you're going to be sending them a nice thank you letter from the board and also the staff. So this is great. So I just wanted to add that in the minutes, that I appreciate that as well.
Anybody else? Okay, great. Yeah, big kudos to the Ashley family. That's really awesome what they're doing. And yes, Supervisor Hewitt, this is going to set precedence, and this will be considered past practice now as we go along. So I have a name of a realtor. If you want to start purchasing some land, that will fall under our reserves, so you can start helping us out. I appreciate that. Okay, moving on, item 6 is our Still Peak Public Access Plan activities update. And surprisingly, this will be not given by Princess Esther, but Brianna Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna Fisher. I'm the staff analyst at RCHCA. I want to provide an update to our public access plan, which is called the Steel Peak Inaugural Trail Plan. We are working with Alta Planning to design the trail and have completed the final concept design plan. In October, we met with the Riverside County Department of Waste Resources to conduct a site visit. They let us know they're in full support of this project. RCHCA is securing a lease agreement with Waste Resources to use their parking lot, which can accommodate up to 10 vehicles. The next step for the Steel Peak Inaugural Trail is to conduct an initial study to identify the appropriate CEQA action. RCHCA is also reviewing all of the habitat conservation plans that may apply to the site, such as the SKR HCP and the multi-species habitat conservation plan to ensure compliance. Staff biologists will be conducting baseline surveys within the project area to collect data to compare SKR populations before and after the installation of the trail, just to monitor their status. And lastly, staff is happy to announce that we were being awarded the California Natural Resource Agency's grant for $609,000 to fund the trail amenities. This is a team effort and it is a milestone achievement. And we'd like to thank the board and a special thanks to Chair Vargas, Vice Chair Lisa Sobek, and Councilmember Christy White for their participation in the grant application process. That concludes my report. And this is, at this time, staff requests that the board to approve the final Steel Peak inaugural trail concept design plan, which is included in your agenda packet. And I can answer any questions at this time.
Very good. Thank you, Rihanna. Janice, do we have any requests from the public to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Very good. Board members, anybody have any questions or comments? Christy White?
Again, I just want to offer my congratulations to everyone on staff who worked so diligently and those who were able to join together as a team to present to the review committee, and just it's a absolute delight and a thrill and really an amazing accomplishment, and we should all report this out as a success on behalf of the Habitat Conservation Agency during our public comments and at our city council meetings, because it's excellent news. And I hope we're doing some press releases for the public to understand the value that will be coming and the achievement that was made. Thank you, Mayor Vargas.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, great. This, as Christy mentioned, this is awesome news. And we're looking forward to moving forward with this project. So thank you again, Hester and your team, for doing an outstanding job on this. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second by Wildemar.
okay, roll call vote, Janice, please.
Steve Corona,
Yes.
Emmett,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley, Murrieta,
Absolutely.
Harris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula, Wildemar,
Aye.
County of Riverside.
Yes.
That concludes the roll call vote and it passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. Item E is our 6E is our contracted land management and monitoring activities update, which will be given by Brian Shomo.
Thank you, Chairman Vargas, and the rest of the RCHCA board. My name is Brian Shemo, and I'm the RCHCA's Director of Natural Resources. And I'll give you a brief update on item 6E is the land management and monitoring contracts. And so just to refresh your memory, the RCHCA responds to outside agencies' requests for assistance with land management and monitoring associated with their lands. And some of that revenue goes towards offsetting the staff costs that rely strictly on fee revenue. And so we can use some of that fee revenue to do other things like recovery efforts and habitat suitability models and that kind of thing. And so recently, as Princess said, the BLM has given us a $600,000 grant with an option to renew it at $194,000 each year for the next 4 years. They decided to exercise that option in year 2 and gave us another $194,000. Part of that money will go towards buying 100 acres of SKR preferred plant seed to restore degraded SKR habitat that has recently been managed. And hopefully that 100 acres, the way we do it, we plant about 2 acres in a checkerboard fashion. And so naturally it'll fill in. And so maybe that 100 acres will become 200 acres is what the plan is intended for. So hopefully we'll continue to get these option years and continue to do more and more SKR management and monitoring under that contract. The other big contract is with Mariposa Biology. This is with Waste Management, Inc. They manage the El Sobrante landfill. That's one of the largest privately held landfills in the country. They have about 1,200 acres of habitat that they have to conserve as part of the second landfill expansion agreement. And the species that they have to conserve is Stevens kangaroo rat. But they are also required, as they expand these phases, to basically mitigate their disturbances in other areas, for instance, restoring the streams and repairing habitats. And so they recently contracted with the RCHCA after a number of years of failing with other contractors. They've seen some of our efforts. They were pleased with what we were doing. And they contracted with us to basically complete the state requirements and the Corps of Engineers requirements under their 404 and 1600 permits to restore habitat within riparian areas so they can continue to open expanded areas of the landfill. That contract is set to expire, or to be finished, I should say, at the end of this month. They have come back and asked us to do small mammal and reptile surveys coming up in the spring. So we'll continue to work with those folks over there to try to meet some of their goals and objectives as well as ours. Metropolitan Water District is also a large contract that we have. It's about $200,000 up to $200,000 a year. Right now, they're contracting with us for CAL FIRE response maps due to all the fire within the region and state. It's important to have first responders be aware of sensitive environmental issues, archaeological issues, access points, where water sources are, roads, that type of thing, in order to expedite any response efforts to uncontrolled wildfires in the area. So Harry Sandoval, our natural resources manager, is going through with MWD and CAL FIRE in coordination with both entities to develop GIS plans. These are computer geographic information system type plans that can be uploaded onto each engine's laptop and also within the system itself. So anybody from outside the area coming in, so a much larger wildfire, would also have access to these response maps and hopefully increase public safety, expedite the response, and keep our firefighters safe. The other thing they want to see is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Recently, Harry Sandoval has identified some very rare plants throughout the area. These are endangered or rare. And what U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has asked MWD, and they subsequently contract with us to do, is to do some type of microhabitat restoration around these areas in the hope to increase the populations of these rare plants, which would relieve some of the regulatory burden off of each of these agencies. Next slide, please. And then we have the existing, it's a 3-year agreement, and we're in the 3rd year of the NRCS restoration for Southwest willow flycatcher. It's an endangered bird. We've been wanting to get rid of this giant wild reed. It's Arundo donax in some of our riparian areas, particularly down near Lake Street and Lake Elsinore. It's a huge fire hazard. It grows about 20 feet in the air, catches fire pretty easily when it's dormant, such as in this time of year. So we recently removed that. We had to maintain it for about 2 years, and now we're in the final restoration phase, and we have folks right down there right now actively planting native plants and native trees, which will hopefully promote Southwest willow flycatcher breeding and nesting within these areas and reduce the fire fuel threat. Finally, we recently received an award for $275,000 for the California Conservation Corps services to help us restore 3 different areas within the reserve and reduce fire fuels in urban wildland interface areas. We recently, as of Monday, we got announced that we were awarded an additional 9,600 hours. So we have these folks for about 5 months this year, a team of about 15 CCC Corps members, and they'll be doing various fuel reduction and restorations throughout the Lake Matthews area. And that concludes, I believe, next slide. That includes all the items under 6E, and it's a receive and file. I'll be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Brian. Janice, do we have any members of the public that wishing to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Thank you. Any board members, do you have any comments or questions?
No hands raised.
Very good. Well, Brian, good work, good presentation, and got some good stuff going on there. That's awesome. Okay, this is receive and file only. We'll move on to item F, which is the Stephen Kangaroo Rat Reserve Management and Monitoring Efforts Activities Update. And this will be given also by Brian Shomo.
Thank you again. Again, Director of Natural Resources, Brian Shomo here. Item 6F is to discuss the more specific SKR kind of focused land management monitoring that the agency does throughout the region. And I just want to take a moment here to thank Princess and Rihanna. Both of them are great public advocacy folks for our on-the-ground management efforts. For years when we were within the county, and we can do everything you can to restore habitat and increase SKR populations, but without the folks to promote those activities and to meet with your legislatures and state and federal government, those efforts sometimes go unheard. And so the recovery efforts have really moved forward under WRCOG and Princess and her staff, Rihanna. And so is the public trails plan. So I want to take a moment here to say a lot of this stuff you're going to see in the next couple slides is great. It's been going on for a long time, but it's currently getting the recognition it deserves through their efforts. So that being said, some little bit disappointing news, but we're going to work with the state on it. The monitoring at Lake Paris that was recently done, we saw a notable decline, and we've been kind of saying this at the last couple board meetings over the years. Because it's so full of stink net, we don't know if you really eat it. I would compare it to eating iceberg lettuce. Sure, you can sustain it, but you're not a healthy weight and you might not reproduce, and the habitat isn't there. And so in 2016, we had 77 animals on 5 grids. Just this last month, we monitored those same 5 grids and we had 44, and that was a 43% decline. In 2016, just to go back, I don't have the 2012 data on here, but in 2012, there was significantly more. I think there was about 83 animals in 2012 compared to 77, now 44. So you can see the decline. The trend line is going down. And so we believe it's an association with the 100% cover of stink net out there. So recently, we informed California State Parks through a letter of their commitment and reminded them of their commitment and their obligation to the SKRHCP. We offered to work with them. We also offered to help fund certain things if they are unable to. The hope is that this will spur their higher ups within the district office to dedicate a little more funding towards reserve management, and maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe a little less to the recreation side of the thing. But hopefully going forward, their reserve manager has recently reached out within the last week or so, wants to talk, let's write up a management plan, let's get going here. So it spurred some kind of response. We'll see how it goes, moving forward. But the initial response is positive. And so maybe in the next couple of years, we'll be able to increase those populations back up to at least where they were in 2017 or 2016, which were okay. Next slide. And so the other thing, the big thing that's happening right now is CAL FIRE, because of all the regional fires, the state has asked CAL FIRE to start using prescribed burns more and more throughout the state. And I believe they've almost tripled the amount of acreage that CAL FIRE should be conducting prescribed burns on in an effort to reduce the fire fuel load in open space areas. So they've also done went from a 3-year renewal period to a 10-year renewal period. So there's not a lot of time in between anymore to update or amend. So we're trying to add as much land as we can because we won't get another opportunity until 10 years from now. So we oversee 2 VMPs, 2 vegetation management programs. And again, that allows CAL FIRE to come onto private people's land, private owners' land, and burn, and the state takes full responsibility for that wildfire, for that prescribed burn. That includes if it escapes and becomes a wildfire, the state is completely responsible. So these things are basically CEQA documents. And so you have to do a lot of biological, cultural surveys, that kind of thing. It takes some time, but we're going to try to add approximately 1,000 more acres to our existing VMPs. And again, we manage 2 of them of about 3,000 acres right now. And we'll also be adding some of El Sobrante's land. They don't have the ability to do it themselves. So the idea was to add them into our existing vegetation management plan for the Lake Matthews area. And that would add about another 800 acres to it as well. So all that would be good for SKR habitat recovery efforts. It would be good for fire fuel and public safety. And so we're supposed to meet with CAL FIRE next week. We did the initial mapping. Now we're going to refine it and focus it down to specific areas. And I'll have an update for you at the future meetings. Next slide. This is what it looks like right now. The existing VMPs are north of the lake. It's not highlighted right now, but the purple around the lake is what we're looking to add. And then that big spot to the left of that purple that's kind of blank, that doesn't have any color, that's where our existing VMP is right now. The orange below that is El Sobrante's waste management lands that we will add. And then there's some areas within there from basically Dawson Canyon to Lake Street and Lake Elsinore that we're gonna try to add to it as well. A little bit over on the far east side there, that's Steel Peak. That's where the public access will happen. Some of the things we'd like to do in there is maybe do some small isolated control burns at a certain time of season, depending on public access issues and whatnot. But we figured it's the only opportunity now in the next 10 years to add it. So we're going to add it. Doesn't mean we have to burn or do any of it, but it will be there and have an option to burn it if we desire to. Next slide. And then the other exciting thing happens, and we're always opening our reserves up to public safety. You heard me talk about this in the past. Federal firefighter investigator classes have been conducted here. Last year, the state had a small firefighter investigator course. These are the guys that go out and find the ignition sources, what happened, what caused it, and try to track down those individuals who may have caused it illegally. And so we recently had 30 state firefighters under CAL FIRE. They spent the last 2 weeks here, and they burned a number of grids out here, and resulting in about 38 acres of SKR habitat being enhanced. And again, the secondary benefit for them was to, get their training and their courses that they're required to have. So it was a great thing to have. Go ahead. Next slide. And the other thing, security has become a big issue, particularly with MWD's lands on the reserve. I don't know if you've seen in the recent news, west of the lake, west of the dam, there was recently 5 people shot, 2 people were killed. And since July, there's been 3 stolen vehicles recovered there, 3 wildfires, a number of shootings. And again, the most recent one had 5 individuals shot. It's become a big party place. And of course, with all that kind of drinking and illicit use, becomes kind of illegal activity. And so we've been working with MWD and trying to raise the alarm for a number of months now. They've kind of seen the light of day. So they recently started installing K-rails up and down Tin Mine Road. That road is a county unmaintained road. They have tried to block it in the past. There's a number of issues with doing that because it is a county road, although it's not formally accepted by the county. They can't simply gate it and close it. So that road has to remain open to the public, but they're going up to one side and putting K-rails, and hopefully that'll deter some of the activity going on out there. But we'll see. We'll report on it in the future. The other thing was over at Steel Peak, we've had a number of issues over the years, which is why we want to do the public access plan. We're hoping to get some good folks in there and to try to deter some of the bad things that have been happening over there. We've had hundreds of feet of chain link stolen over there. We've had illegal dumping going on. We've had various issues. Just recently, we've reinstalled 250 feet of chain link fencing that was stolen, cut off the poles and removed. We increased our signage, and hopefully going forward, this will be a deterrent from entering the area and doing any more illegal dumping until we can open it up for public access. That being said, I think that's it, except for the agency goals as far as the land management and monitoring side of the shop. Again, what we'd like to see, we've been managing this property and our properties and other properties for well over a decade now, and we feel like we got the non-native weeds under control. But what we're lacking is that kind of seed bank that have the SKR preferred forage material in there, your poppies and your lupines, your flower seeds and stuff. So what we want to do is keep adding that into the mix, and hopefully they'll proliferate over time and increase SKR preferred forage material. We want to also monitor half of the reserve system to identify SKR population trends. The areas we identified this year were Lake Paris, Steel Peak, City of Riverside, and Mott Rimrock Reserve. We got 2 of those. We're working with the City of Riverside to resolve some insurance issues. We should be able to get into there. And then Mott Rimrock Reserve is monitored by UCR. And so we should be able to complete that goal by the end of this fiscal year. The other thing we want to do is we have to finish that vegetation management program by this spring. Otherwise, we won't be able to do any prescribed burns this year. So that's a priority for us to get that done in the next 6 months. And that's going to require a lot of extensive cultural and biological surveys. So our biological staff is going to be quite busy. The other thing we're working on, Harry Sandoval has been really working hard on this, is to develop these conservation easements over the RCHCA owned riparian areas. And the RCHCA is only obligated to do SKR management and conserve our land for SKR. which frees up some of these riparian areas to be available for mitigation credits by other agencies. The county has shown interest in this, and they are anticipated to purchase all the credits, which would be about 29 acres of a riparian habitat, to be used for regional infrastructure projects, landfills expansions, that kind of thing. And so we've recently got the jurisdictional delineation through the Army Corps of Engineers. It took almost a year because of the COVID thing and Corps of Engineer process. We finally have that done. The next step is to develop the habitat management and monitoring plans for each individual stream. Those have been developed. We're now negotiating with the wildlife agencies, the CDFW, on some of the things that they would like to see included in there and some of the things that we would like to see happen as well. So there's a little bit of a negotiation going on there, but we'll have an update at the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have that approved by then. So that concludes the presentation of item 6F. I'll be happy to entertain any questions or comments you may have.
Janice, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this matter?
No, sir.
Board members, anybody have any comments or questions?
I have a question for Brian.
Okay.
Brian, back when you talked about the stinkweed and how it's affecting the Stevens kangaroo rat, what are we doing? I know you've had conversations about this before, how you're using insecticide, you're using burn. You were working with Rivers, I believe UCR as well. As I've noticed in my city, there is a huge easement. I was out by Edison, and on Edison's easement, it's just full of stinkweed. So is there anything that we can do? Because I'm sure the weeds or the seeds collect on the equipment and then it's passed around other areas. Is there anything that we can do to help that process?
Yes, and so I'm glad you brought that up. So two things happening right now. One is UCR has basically finished their research, and they have identified an herbicide called Transline. It acts as both a pre-emergent, so it prevents things from germinating and sprouting, and you apply it once, say in November, and then that prevents it from sprouting. If any do, say you get a lot of rain and it washes it out, you can spray it again in the spring and it acts as a post-emergent. So you can kill the plant really quickly, unlike the Roundup, which took about 2 to 3 weeks for it to be effective, and it continued to go to seed. So we have a new herbicide that we can use on spot treatments and what we're encouraging Lake Paris to do. The other thing is we've recently begun talks with WRCOG's folks in the public works committees and stuff. And we want to get that educational message out to our public infrastructure maintenance departments along the shoulders of roads, along Edison's easements in right-of-ways. MWD is the same thing along their canals and their maintenance roads. You see a lot of public utilities not only just carrying it with their equipment, but when they grade it to repair winter rain damage, they push that seed further and further along. So education and giving them the tools to combat the weed, I think are going to be the two big things coming up in the spring here. And that public works meeting, I believe, is going to be in December. Somebody could probably correct me if I'm wrong. But we will be reaching out to the various public works entities out there. A lot of it's just going to have to do with, if they can reschedule their maintenance by maybe 1 or 2 months. We talked with county transportation department before, and they like to start out in the desert doing the shoulder maintenance, and because it's colder, in the winter months. But we thought if you can move up their time here in Western Riverside, even by a month, you'll probably scrape the road when the thing's flowering and kill it, rather than waiting until June and it's already set seed and spreading it. If you can grade the roads in May, it doesn't cost you anything more. If you can accommodate that schedule, it really would help to remove the plant before it sets seed. So there's little things we're going to suggest. Hopefully they take it up, but we're going to hopefully work with the public works departments in the future here.
Would you report back on that and how how it went? And
absolutely,
I love the idea. I mean, it seems like a simple fix to do that earlier. Yeah, I like that. So
it seems like it is a simple fix. And I hate to say it, but there's reasons they do it in a certain way, and they've done it in a certain way for a number of years. So changing that, process is somewhat difficult. And again, a lot of entities spray their utility corridors. I know Edison in our neck of the woods, they grade their roads twice a year. They grade them in the fall and they grade them in the spring. Again, if we can work with them to grade at a certain time, it'll really help things out. So just the biggest thing is to getting that message out and getting it to the right people, that down to the grading operator. You talk to some of the higher ups and you get the message, but it never makes its way down to the guy sitting in the grader doing the work. So I think that's where we're going to focus on.
Would that include Caltrans in that?
Caltrans will reach out to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Recently put out a public service bulletin, quagga mussel, stinknet, and I forget what the other one. And they had a whole list of things. So they created a brochure and they sent it to Caltrans as well. So there's a multi-pronged approach to educating our public works departments at this point. Hopefully we see something in the near future. Really though, it would be a hugely beneficial if just even some of our reserve managers, I think they're really coming around to the idea now. They're really seeing what's happening. And if they respond in their own reserves, that'll go a long way to achieving this agency's goals. If we can keep it out of the reserves, that's great. But if you can even confront it a little bit while it's in your reserve, that's even better. Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good question, Lisa. Anybody else? All right, sounds great. Thank you, Brian, again for a good presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, item 7 is a report from our general manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Nothing really to report, just hoping that by the time we have our next meeting, we'll have a species downlisted and maybe we'll have ground being broken on the Steel Peak Inaugural Trail. Might be a little bit early for that, but we'll hope for the best.
Awesome. Item 8, items for future agenda item. Any member wish to add something to?
I think I mentioned it already to Brian that maybe he can come back with a report and update about the stinkweed and how that's going to work with the public works and education.
Yes. Member White?
Well, I was going to say and add on to Rick Bishop's comments that maybe by the next time we meet, we might be able to meet together in person again. That would be a miracle and a good sign.
Yes. Anybody else? Very good. Item 9 is general announcements. Anybody have any announcements? Member White?
Just to wish everyone a very happy November and happy Thanksgiving holidays, and throughout the month of December for all the holidays that happened, and a very healthy and happy holiday season until January. And appreciate everyone's contributions on staff and all of our members. Wish you the best.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Brian, I'll save myself an email or text, but can you send me just, or everybody for that matter, a copy of just the Steel Peak map with a PDF or JPEG, whatever, and that really depicts all the trails really good.
Do you want the public trails plan with that map, or do you want just a general map of the area?
No, I want the public trail.
Okay, we'll get it to you.
It's
Okay.
actually, if I may, it's in your agenda packet.
I went through mine right now. I didn't see any pictures in there.
Okay, we'll make sure to get it to you.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not, maybe I missed it.
It's
Oh,
just,
wait a minute. I just saw it's a link.
It is a dynamic file, so it has been listed, it's been linked in the attachment.
I just saw the link. I'm downloading it and I'll see if this is what I want before we leave. So one message, some of you may have heard me already say this in other committees, but for those who haven't, today at 3 o'clock, the Nuevo Bridge will reopen in Paris. So let your family members and friends know, whoever do crossover. It's been down for several months to be reconstructed. So that's a good thing for everybody. So, and outside of that, this map is still down. It must be a really detailed map.
It's a 23 gigabyte file. It's huge.
Yeah, I'm almost there. Item 10 is going to be our next meeting, which is scheduled for Thursday, February 18th, 2021 at 11:30 a.m. It's on the Zoom platform, unless things change by then, hopefully. And I just see the plan. Well, I'll look at this. I'm not going to make everybody wait. I just want to make sure what, okay, I think I see it. Okay. All right. That's it, everybody. Have a wonderful day and happy holidays and Turkey Day and all that stuff. But most importantly, please stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you all at the next meeting. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.